caregiving. We are in the second part of our trauma-informed caregiving training today. And I would like for you in the chat, if you could put in what are the ages of the children that are in your care? Just so we have kind of a rough idea of like the ages that we're working with currently. And I did not forget that we ran out of time on the last session. So I do have a spot for us to stop for a moment. Are there any questions from part one, or maybe some aha moments, something that you hadn't thought about before maybe, or yeah, go ahead and put those in the chat. We'll just give it a couple minutes and see what y'all have to say. Also, if you could let me know, Sheila, what folks are saying about the ages too. Sheila, I think you're muted.
I am, because I don't want anyone to, I don't want to interrupt you. So yeah,
And I
yeah,
appreciate that.
good range. Gosh, a heck of a range actually. So some younger kiddos, like under the age of 5, and then I would say a
Okay,
good chunk of like kind of tweens, preteen types. And then a couple caring for like older folks, like maybe like a 27-year-old, so maybe like a little older
perfect.
adult situation. Yeah, so a little bit of everything.
Nice. And do we have any reflections or questions from part one? Do, 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 do.
I'm checking the chat. Nothing so far. Yeah,
Okay.
not yet. So.
We'll have another opportunity in later on. So if you have questions, you can put them in the chat, or yeah, let's see if some of your questions get answered. How's everyone doing? Can I get a thumbs up? Y'all good? Yeah? Okay. So let's talk about how we can respond to all the things that we talked about in part one. So in part one, we talked about remember the brain and how you can flip your lid. You can go from 0 to 100, or so it seems. You can have the hypoarousal, which comes across as like fight or flight. You can have the hypoarousal, which comes across as freeze, or like where they go inward. We talked about like how our thoughts and how we think about ourselves. I'm not sure if someone needs to mute, but yeah, I think it's you, Sheila.
I came off mute.
So just recognizing also our sensory needs, seeking and avoiding behaviors. We're really complicated, right? There are lots of layers to us. And then we have behavior. What is this behavior? And then what do we do about it? So we're, in the next little bit here, we're going to go through some different ideas of how we can look at this. So let's start with regulating responses. So when we look at this chart, it's talking about at different levels of where the kid is. I would also point out that we need to be aware of where we are at as well. I think a lot of times we as caregivers are frustrated. We are ready to flip our lids, and then we're trying to teach. We're trying to correct all these things when we are not regulated ourselves. So just first being able to recognize where we're at. So when you look at like when you start to notice that there's something going on and your kid is dysregulated or getting close to it, how your presence is, how your voice is, eye contact, being able to like even sometimes when you start to talk quieter and more calmly, it can change the atmosphere instead of raising your voice and like making it like, so being able to change the way and the confidence to be able to be like, okay, I see that you're upset or whatever it is that you say, but clear, and then clear, simple directives. This is not the time to be giving lectures. It may be the time you'll want to give a lecture, but it is not the time. So less is more. What do you need? Simple. What do you need? They may not know. I'm here. It's very simple things. Slow, sure physical touch, invited touch. So as you can see, like it's very much in like you are adjusting how you approach based on where they are in their regulation. And you can see as they go further along that you really are going to have to change your approach. You are not going to be able to, like one of the things, we'll talk about it in a little bit, is playful engagement. Well, if they're in terror and like flipped their lid, it may be too late for that. So it may just be like calm presence. So this is just an outline. We're going to go through some different approaches, but I wanted you to see this to start out because if you look at the regulating brain region, it is further down on it. You'll see where they are in the brain. And so being able to also in cognition, be able to see where they're at. So being able to, have you ever worked with a child and it almost felt like they were a caged animal? Have you ever like seen like where an animal, you know, you're trying to help, but their reaction is like complete terror. But we still push. We still like, we're helping if you just let us help. So being able to like back off and take a breath and recognize where you're at, where they're at, and be able to then calm and give what they need in that moment. And that is why it is so important that you are aware of your own energy. And we're going to talk a lot about that throughout, because if you recognize where you're at, you're probably going to be a little dysregulated. You might need a break, or you may need to just step back a little bit, take some deep breaths, model it with them. Pause is a powerful, powerful tool. Okay. So let's talk a little bit. So 6Rs, I actually got this. This is from Dr. Bruce Perry. How many folks have heard of Dr. Bruce Perry? He has a great book that he wrote with Oprah Winfrey called What Happened to You versus What's Wrong with You. It's What Happened to You. I was lucky enough when I worked at Casey Family Programs, I was able to complete phase 1 of brain metrics. So the brain mapping to be able to understand the trauma in the brain, how it develops and how there can be different parts of the brain that maybe are underdeveloped because of different things that happened, kind of things that we talked about already. And he talks also about the 6Rs, which are ways to help build resiliency. So relational, we already know having a strong, healthy relationship where there is trust. And that's where you come in. I know someone had asked, is it too late, or is there a point when you can't change those connections or the reaction? Relational. All it takes is one healthy adult to be able to change the life of a child. And I would say the same for anyone, to be honest with you. People can change, they can adjust, they can grow. I see it every day. If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. I have a lot of hope in the ability to heal and change. So relationship, never underestimate your relationship. Never underestimate that. Relevant, using methods that are developmentally appropriate. So we really need to make sure we understand like where the kid is developmentally before we're expecting certain things. Because sometimes there's a saying, and it's actually from collaborative problem solving, but it's like skill versus will. Sometimes they don't have the skills that they need to be able to do what you're asking of them. So even if they're a certain age, they may developmentally not be able to do what you're asking. So just being really aware of that, and being able to adjust accordingly. Repetitive, letting the brain experience the same situation response many, many times. Now think about when we talked about how the brain develops and the stress response and how over time, do you remember that picture where it was like lit up? This part was lit up from overuse. We have to do the same thing for positive experiences, for connecting experiences, repetitive, 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 giving them opportunities to do things the way that they want to do it, like the correct way, giving them opportunities to try again. And then we're going to talk more about, we'll get to it. Rewarding. Fun activities help lower the temperature of the brain stem and level out stress hormones. What? And I remember, we'll get back to it in a bit, but I remember specifically Charlie Hahn, I'm shouting you out there, talked about how important it is as grandparents to remember to have fun with our grandchildren. It is so important. And I will say that having fun disarms fear. If you're having fun, you are disarming fear, and that is connecting. If any time that you can find any kind of example where you can make it fun, it will help them, and they will learn it faster than if you're just lecture, lecture, lecture. So really finding opportunities to make it fun. And we'll go through some different examples in a bit. Let me see what else it says here. It helps children relax and find the peace they crave, even if this place seems messy or wild to you. The more the better. I'm just saying. Rhythmic, patterned, repetitive, rhythmic activity. Think about like music, how music can calm. Music can like bring up and make it fun. Anything that you can learn and doing it with rhythm can be really therapeutic. An example, and let's do this now, just because it's a good spot to practice this. Since you all have had a pretty long day and your brains, I'm sure, have gotten lots of information. So we're going to do the butterfly tap. So cross your arms like this. Everyone do this. I can actually see you. I made it so I can see you. Okay. And you're going to bilateral tap, tap. Now, this is something that you can do for yourself, that you can show your kids. Do you see how you have the power? And then you can do a couple different things. You can take a nice deep breath in, hold, and then a slow release. This is actually really, really nice right now. Okay. So again, that rhythmic pattern, repetitive, rhythmic activity. Okay. And then respectful, treating the individual with honor and compassion to help create or sustain a powerful human connection. So really the respecting them as little humans or big humans, and giving them opportunities to use their voice, and giving them opportunities to try again. And I would say, along with respectful, is being okay with making mistakes yourself as the caregiver, to be vulnerable, to be able to model, hey, I stepped in it, or I didn't, I wasn't my best self. Can I try again? To be able to be respectful, to let them know that, hey, we all mess up sometimes. And that doesn't mean that we're a bad person. We just made a decision that wasn't necessarily the best in the situation. More, I use that example in a bit. Before we move on, do we have any questions so far about what I've shared? Okay. I had mentioned that I am a trust-based relational intervention practitioner. Being able to learn TBRI um, was life-changing for me and for all the families that I've worked with. I have used it regardless of whether they like to say kids from hard places. I say any kid, any person could really use the benefits of TBRI. So we're going to shift into a little bit on this with the understanding that later on we are going to have a training session, I believe next month, specifically around this, and we'll be able to go in more detail. But let's go ahead and let's.
TBRI, trust-based relational intervention, has at its core building a trusting relationship. It has 3 sets of principles, and they look at the child as a whole. When you think about development, the baby cries and I say, yes, I will comfort you. And so this child learns that they have a voice. They learn trust, which is the lesson of the first year of life. I can trust. There are so many children from hard places, and for those children, their capacity to trust has been fiercely damaged. The brain chemistry of a child who cries and no one comes is dramatically altered. The child with a history of trauma or loss or abuse has no hope of healing without a nurturing relationship. In every way that I make time and space, that I give touch, eye contact, and I give words, I am going to empower this child to go back to the beginning of what he or she should have experienced in the arms of a loving parent that said, when you cry, I will come. The phenomenal thing about a trust-based intervention is, as we connect to this child, as we build safety, we actually change the brain chemistry. We change the wiring of the brain. This is really the heart and soul of all that we are and all that we do. Do I look into the child's eyes? Do I touch their arm when I talk to them? When they talk to me, do I stop what I'm doing and talk to them? This is the essence of mindfulness. The excitatory chemicals about I'm afraid, I'm hungry, I'm cold, those are balanced when the caregiver comes and gives warmth. All regulation occurs first with an external regulator. So in the beginning, I regulate all. They're cold, I bring warmth. They're crying, I bring myself. And out of my regulation, their brain develops capacity for self-regulation. If this child didn't have this experience, that child doesn't feel safe. This chemistry can be altered, first by knowing they're safe, second by nutrient-rich foods, third by my environmental regulation of that child's emotion, and fourth by appropriate exercise. So we can balance brain chemistry by creating a holistic environment. We clearly have to deal with behavior. Correcting means showing a child the right behavior, praising him when he gets it, and showing it to him until he can get it right, and showing him with no fear and no shame so that he builds success, not a greater sense of failure. So the message of hope for our families is that we can help our children to dramatic levels of healing. We simply have to be devoted to it and be willing to invest what it's going to take.
That was Karen Purvis.
TBRI.
She created TBRI with Dr. David Cross, and she's amazing. How many of you have heard of TBRI? I see a lot of hands. Nice. So it really is a holistic way of looking at a child. So think back of part 1 when we looked at brain development, the stress response. We looked at the body reaction, right, to trauma. We looked at sensory, seeking and avoiding behaviors. We looked at thoughts and beliefs about self. And then when we look at trust-based relational intervention, it is one strategy to be able to pinpoint all of those different areas. And so the 3 principles is empowering, connecting, and correcting. And I'm going to go through each one just briefly. Again, we will go through it in more detail at the next training, but I really want to give you some things that you can do today. So, empowering, it's really important that we try to give them the best shot at having the best day. And what I mean by that is if we can give them tools and different things to help their environment, to help them stay more regulated, they are going to be able to connect with people in a better way. As you know, if it's constantly where they're reacting and they're dysregulated, it has impact on relationship and connection with others. And so looking at your environment. So one of the trickiest things, like for instance, is transitions. Think of like different transitions that can be a difficult time for your kids. I'm thinking bedtime, wake up time, getting ready for school, when you're leaving, maybe when you're coming back, right? So there's things that you can do to help your child prepare. And the reason why I asked about the ages was because for different kids would require different approaches. So, having rituals or something for transitions. So for a certain age to give, let's say, a 5-minute warning. In 5 minutes, we're going to blah, 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 blah. Okay, in 2 minutes, we're going to do blah, blah, blah. The art of distraction is a beautiful thing. Oh, it's time to turn that off, but look, we have la 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 la, and being able, depending on the age, to do a distraction. For older kids, it would be more like, okay, when you're both regulated, what would you like me to do to help during transitions? Because I've noticed that it can be really difficult for you to get off your gaming, your game when it's time for dinner. So what is something that we could come up with together? Why do you think it's important for us to ask, like a teenager, what they think would be helpful? And to do it when they are calm and you're calm. What would be a benefit of doing that? You can write it in your note. In the chat if you want.
I'm hearing empowerment to kind of help them with that decision-making process in the chat.
Absolutely. They may have more buy-in if it was partly their idea. Yeah, this is definitely a skill that we all need to be able to, have a voice. And I think, like back to that respect, this is a great way to show respect. Now, do you have any part of you that goes, oh, but I'm the parent. They need to respect me and don't tell, and I should be telling them? So
nobody in the chat. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I just want to acknowledge that because some of the ways that we're talking about may be different than how we were raised. I will just speak for myself. I was raised, this is my house, not me, but my parents' house. If you don't like it, there's the door. Don't talk back. If you don't like it, go to your room. I don't know. Am I the only one who heard those kinds of messaging? So to be able to say, for my parents to go, well, what would be helpful for you? I'd be like, what? And it really is, it is one way to also build relationship. And we know from everything that we learned that relationship, connection is where healing happens. A lot of times the trauma happens in relationship. Healing also needs to happen in relationship. And I will say something about power struggles. You can win a power struggle and lose relationship. You can say, well, this is my way. You need to do it at this time. They will listen, but they won't learn any like problem solving. They will learn that they don't have a voice, so they'll find a way to push it another way. They will. Do you think that they'll trust you? No. So we really are trying to find opportunities to connect. That doesn't mean you're not in charge. Giving them that option is being in charge of knowing that you want them to be able to have a voice. Okay, so we're looking at ecological. Okay. The other thing is thinking about environment. Think about noise level, lights. If there are certain things where you notice that everyone is like wound up, think about, okay, do I need to turn the lights down? Do I need to turn the music down? Like what are some ways that I can like adjust to like kind of bring the energy down? And then physiological. Let's talk about this. I have been pushing water, right? Hydration is so important. Your blood sugar levels, having snacks, healthy snacks, every 2 hours is a great amount of time to give them as much. Think about like their regulation, and think about what happens when it dips. Think about, I'll give you a word, hangry. How many of us have experienced hangry? Yes. Okay. So if you already have a child who has some difficulty with regulation, and then they're not getting enough liquids, their blood sugar is dipping, okay, that can cause it to move to dysregulation. Another thing is healthy touch. She mentioned, like a healthy touch, being available for hugs. Physical activity doesn't mean that you have to like be going to the gym, but like going for a walk, getting up and moving. I have to do that so that I can think. I will walk around where I work and I'll come back and it's like a reset. And then looking at sensory. We're not going to talk about it today. Bless you, Leticia. We're not going to talk about it today, but really like starting to explore what are my sensory seeking and avoiding behaviors. What is it that helps me calm down? What is it that makes my energy go up? And we're talking not just about the kids, we're talking about yours as well. Any questions about empowering? Okay, we're going to move on to connecting, mindfulness, your calm presence. We've already talked about that when we looked at the different responses, where the child is in the brain, and how we need to be attuned, aware, calm. And can you do that successfully if you're tuned up and flipped? No. One of the things that I will say that I love so much about TBRI is that it's proactive, not reactive. And that's where we need to change our mindset. Proactive. I'm going to do these different things to help try to like empower me so that I can connect. Awareness, flexible responding. What do you think that means by flexible responding? I kind of gave you a hint as to how my parents were, and they're lovely, lovely people. But do you think that their response to me was flexible? No, it wasn't. It was very my way or the highway, right? And then creative problem solving, engagement, eye contact. Sometimes kids don't want to have eye contact. In fact, we make the joke. Well, I don't know if it's a joke. I think it's funny and relevant, but in social work, like one of the best places to talk to your kid, and it's the same for parents too, is in the car. So eye contact isn't always like necessary. I'll just say that. Being able, I'm going to move to the side. We're talking, you're able to look around. There's that parallel activity, right? We're next to each other, we're connecting, but I've taken the pressure off of them versus like staring at them. But it's also important that if they're talking to you, that you stop what you're doing, you don't do this, that you put it down and say, I'm listening. You have my attention. Do you see that, how important that is versus, yeah, what's up? And I think all of us have been guilty of that, or I'll just speak for myself. Okay. Authoritative voice. So you don't want it to be like, come on, listen to me, unless you're doing playful. And then you want it to be where you're not looking down and talking in a way that could create fear. Again, you might be able to get your need met by whatever the behavior is, but at what cost? So really being able to be aware of your tone. Now, playful interaction is key to everything. Playful, playful, playful. One of the first things that I learned in TBRI was like someone would come up and be like, give me some water. Like a kid go, I want some water. And she'd go, are you asking, are you telling? Do you see how it's like playful, but she's still getting her point across like, are you asking, are you telling? And then you'd be like, I'm asking. Well, you want to try that again with respect? Right. Can I have a glass of water? Yes, I'd be happy to give you a glass of water. But it's very playful. If we can start with playful, a lot of times it will never escalate to something bigger. And so being able to be like, whoa, someone's grumpy this morning. I'm gonna stand over here. I'm gonna be over here. I'm playful, I'm calling it out, and then I can kind of see like where they're at. I can be able to play. Or I could say, oh, I'm grumpy. All right. And we'll go into correcting and some things that we can do. And then, of course, healthy touch. Now, I have worked with families where the seeking and avoiding behaviors are opposite of their kids. So what I mean by that is I had a kid that was just like, oh, I need touch. I need touch all the time. And guess what? The parent was like, that's too much touch. So have you ever had that where you're not working on that? So being able to be aware of that, give what you can, and then there's some alternatives that you can do. For instance, like a stuffed animal sandwich where they get the touch and they get the, the contact that they need, but there's also the parent also has something that they need. Any questions about connecting? Okay, so correcting, again, we always start with playful engagement. Some other things, life value terms, using words with respect is a good one. No hurts. Do you see, we had talked at one point about how we want less is more. That's why they have the life values. So like shorter sentences, no hurts. What do you think when I say no hurts? With respect. What do you think when I say with respect? So everyone, I'm not expecting an answer. It's all good. But you see, I got a lot of crossed without actually having to say a lot. And I guess that's the main point. So let's talk a little bit about the behavioral scripts. So choices, compromises, and redos. I talked about redos. Redos, I think, is the most powerful thing that we could model for our kids to show them that we mess up. I think there is something that we think that we have to have it all together at all times, or we fake it. I'm going to tell you right now, we're not good at faking it. We think we can fake it, but kids will know. And what happens is if we're faking it or we think we're faking it, they still are sensing something's wrong. And so then they're not feeling safe because they're like, yeah, I'll say that it's fine, but I'm sensing an energy that says it's not fine. And I just don't trust the situation. So being able to say, hey, this is age appropriately. This is, like I was having a rough day. I kind of was grumpy earlier. Can I have a redo? Let me try again. Being able to offer choices, giving a couple choices that they can have an option. Compromises. Sometimes, have you ever had it where it's time to do something and you're not ready? Have you ever compromised? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So being able to give your children opportunities to try that on. And part of this is that one, it's a life skill that they're going to need to learn, but it's also building trust, it's building connection, it's eliminating the power struggle, which hurts relationships. And it's a compromise that you both can live with. You don't always have to have a compromise. But the thing is that the more that you can say yes, actually, the better it is for your kid, for your relationship. And it's better in the long run for them with all of their relationships. They're learning how to be with other people, to respect their own boundaries, to respect their thoughts, not just being told how to act, how to be. They're learning how to compromise, how to offer choices, how to try again, to talk with respect, to be treated with respect. Does that make sense to everyone?
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll talk another time of levels of response, but it goes along with this. What do folks think about this in particular? It's a very quick thing here. Okay. So one more thing that I want to bring up in this is it's really important. The Strengthening Families Protective Factors framework. Have all of you heard of the 5 protective factors? Yeah, the 5 protective factors, I think it's really important, especially when we go into the series that we're going to be introducing, is because it really does go along with the 5 protective factors. So, and the 5 protective factors are characteristics that have been shown to make positive outcomes more likely for children and their families. So one is parental resilience, being able to bounce back. There's been, all of us experience different things that have happened, and that ability to keep going, to have hope, is really important. And to be able to accept support and receive support is, it promotes self care, all of that. And we'll talk more about that during the series. Social connections. One of the things that I have really seen a lot is just how isolated families can feel. So like how you're together during this conference, to be able to say, like to connect with other caregivers that are experiencing similar things. That is really, like we talk about healing happens in relationships. It's the same for you. So just recognizing to be there for each other is so important. Knowledge of parenting and child development, well, you're doing that as well. You're learning, you're growing, and the more that you understand, the better you'll be able to support your child. The social and emotional competence of your kids. We talked about regulation. I mean, all of this is going to be so important for kids to be able to be responsible and in their role in society and being able to relate to peers and others, to be able to understand their own regulation. And it starts with you. And then concrete supports is really those the tips, even from today, some of you, like the different resources that are available, and we'll be talking about that during the training as well. So all of these have just shown that it can really help strengthen a family, in addition to all the things we talked about. Any questions about any of that? Because now I want to introduce the Idaho Kinship Caregiver Education Series. So this is actually, you can click on this right here and sign up. We have a few already set up. So again, the trust-based relational intervention, we're going to do even more with that. The brain, the body, and the window of tolerance is going to be in April. Attachment, and then relationship shifts. You know what we're talking about, but just an example, like I was grandma, now I'm parent, and how, there's grief and loss with that. There's adjustment for you and also for the child and other family members. So we'll talk more about that. Self-care and building community. Huge importance of self-care, especially if you haven't figured out yet. TBRI is caregiver led. And then all the things we're talking about when it comes to helping our children through a trauma-informed lens is really making sure that we take care of ourselves first to be able to have the capacity to take care of the children in our lives. And then in July, it's going to be an open forum. So by then, we're going to get more information from you if there are certain areas that we want to learn more about. It could also be, depending on what we end up getting from all of you, of putting it all together at the end there. And I will be your facilitator for all of these. I'm very excited. And then I'm going to move on to the next thing really quick, Sheila. We can always come back. Is that cool?
Sure thing. And I just put the link in the chat as well. And then we have the QR code, and we are happy to get this out to whoever needs it. So we want to make sure people have it. Yeah.
Perfect. And then I wanted to share one more resource. When I did my introduction, I forgot to mention that I'm also a co-host on the Resilient Parenting podcast. It is a free resource from the Idaho Children's Trust Fund. I am a part of it with my husband, Ken Bass, and Sheila has been a guest. We've had Charlie Hahn has been on a couple times, most recently talking about For the Love of Kinship. And it's just, there's a lot of great resources for anyone in a parenting role across the state of Idaho. And I think right now we are up to 66 episodes. And so you can go back and they go for different areas. Some of the things we talked about will be on there. Lots of different resources across the state. Do you want me to go back, Sheila?
Yeah, whatever works I think we're okay. I think people are actually signing up for it. So I'm linking to the Resilient Parent podcast in the chat right now too. So
Okay. So the last bit, because I want to make sure, I wanted to end to give us enough time to ask questions and talk about some things. So the last bit is for you to complete the survey, but I also want to just open it up to questions. I'm going to leave this up.
We're super hope folks can fill out the survey just because we want to hear from you, of course, but also at the end we ask what topics you want to hear more about, because that last session we haven't built it yet. So we want to hear from folks to kind of help us learn more about what people might want to hear about, so we can have a really meaningful last session of this series. So please, we'd love to hear your feedback on that survey.
Did everyone get this? Because if you guys are good, I'm going to stop sharing.
We can add it for sure. Yep, we can add
Okay.
it.
Okay, so what questions do you have or ahas? Ahas, thoughts? We have 10 minutes. We'll say we have 10 minutes. And I think we have time for people if you want to. Well, Leticia, are you typing something?
Yes, that was that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I just got some feedback that this is good information for a more gentle approach, was what Cindy said. So thanks for that, Cindy. And yeah, and the survey just went in the chat as well. I know it doesn't help the folks at the watch parties, but um, yes, there's more information there. So
Is there, something that I would be curious about? Uh, oh, what's the best way to stay regulated when your child is dysregulated and overwhelming you? Very good question. Well, the first thing is you have to notice that you're getting dysregulated. A lot of times we step in it and then we're like, oh, oh. So we as the adults are the only ones who can stop that. So whenever you discover it, you can a few different things depending on where you're at in your regulation. You can take a deep breath, slow down. If you think that you need space to calm down more, you could even say, depending on the situation, I'm gonna stand over here and I'm gonna work on being calm. One of the things that we'll talk about when we talk more about TBRI is really talking to kids about their regulation when everyone's calm. And we actually have some different tools that we will use, like the engine plate, where you'll be able to use colors to be able to say, oh, mommy's going into the yellow or mama's going into the red. Then they will know, oh, we're going into the red. Or, like check your engine. So being able to like even have that language, like, okay, I'm noticing that my energy's starting to get up. So I'm going to take a deep breath. The point is to pause, to calm yourself enough to be able to regulate. So maybe get a drink of water. I wear fidget rings, so I have my fidget rings. A simple thing, and this is something you could teach your kids. I'll just teach you now, is the magic mustache. We do it already. I guarantee that you do it already. How many of you guys have been in a meeting and you've been like this? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. I'll be looking. Oh, look, Sheila, you're doing it right then. You were doing it. Yeah. Oh, let me look. Let me try to figure out what's going on with my computer. Yeah, there's a pressure point right here. And so when you press on it, it helps calm. So I do it all the time. And then I'm like, ha, 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 I'm regulating. You can do something like that. Okay, time for magic mustache, depending on the age. Okay. But it can be something, the more that you talk about it, the more you're going to normalize the ups and downs of how we're feeling. And I think that will really help in those moments when you are starting to get dysregulated. So really being proactive with your messaging too.
yeah.
Was there another question?
Another comment, as a grandparent, I can really see this as an entirely different and better way to parent a child than how I was raised.
Yeah, it is a such a connecting way. And it's, I use it on my own kid. And so, like when we were talking about the colors and whatnot, we have it where we even as a teenager, like that power struggle to just be able to go, I don't have to be in charge all the time. I don't have to be right all the time. The most important thing is relationship. That doesn't mean that they get away with everything. There are definite boundaries. There are definitely expectations, but it's not like black and white. Like we all have certain barrier, like certain things that we work around, right? But with the understanding, like playful engagement and being able to just like enjoy parenting them. Yeah, eye-opening for sure as a grandparent now parenting. Yeah. And especially in that, changing that role, it really hit me hard when, Charlie Han was talking specifically about as a grandparent to not forget to have fun. Because I remember when I think of my grandma, I think of chocolate chip cookies and brushing my hair softly. Um, and you still, as that grandparent, can do chocolate chip cookies and brushing hair softly, and there's just more to it, and being able to have fun, finding ways to connect. Yeah, and what do you think about, your understanding now of maybe what's going on with the kiddos, like children that you're caring for? Has that changed at all? Like the way that you look at them or their behaviors?
Well, folks are
'Cause
kind
I
of
know,
thinking about this. I worked in foster care for a long time, as you know, Michelle. And I think when we started really thinking about adopting TBRI principles into our work and kind of the foster care community, it was really a game changer. It kind of gave us a whole new language. I think it gave the same to parents and so, or to foster parents. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about this.
was there other comments, Sheila?
I'm looking right now. Let me see. Oh, yeah, there's another comment. Just I'm sorry. Yes, there
An
is.
issue with math?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. For those, yeah. So somebody recommended The Body Keeps the Score, and then What Happened to You are two books that are great resources. How do you hold kids accountable for their bad behaviors, like hitting when they're hurting siblings, but you know they're overwhelmed emotionally in life? I feel like the siblings think I don't care if one hits them if I don't hold them accountable in a strong way. So what do you do when there's
Yeah.
that sibling stuff going on?
So the first thing you're going to need to do is make sure for safety, make sure that, that the other children are safe, but also regulating. You got to get them back to regulation to be able to calm. And when they're regulated, there you will need to have some um consequences for that because that is not allowed. But at the same time, recognizing that there are things that they can do to help them be regulated in those moments proactively. So being able to do, I think it's both. I think a lot of times kids get in trouble when they were not in control of their bodies. And it can be very frustrating because they probably are feeling like this isn't fair. I didn't mean to do it. But at the same time, we have a certain responsibility to, like to the regulation. And then, whether it's like making amends, that repair work, with the sibling. Repair is really important. We didn't talk about that today, but we'll definitely talk about that at another time. Yeah, you might need to have the punching bag for yourself too sometimes, I think. And a couple other books that are really good is The Connected Child, The Connected Parent, and The Connected Therapist. The Connected Therapist connects TBRI with the brain metrics from Dr. Bruce Perry and then collaborative problem solving.
Perfect. We have
Yes,
Carrie Perkins. We've got a hand up from Carrie.
yes,
Yeah,
Carrie.
I'm just like, I struggle. I don't know if it's because of the violent way I was raised, but like I struggle when my child like is really disrespectful and
Hmm.
defiant because I feel like they're disrespecting me. You know what I'm saying? And so it's hard to
Absolutely.
not respond in that way and to actually accept that they're not functioning correctly in their brain. Like it's
And in
hard
that
to
moment, when
comprehend.
you're feeling that way, I would say that you're being triggered from things that you're still working on. And so being able to acknowledge that,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
just like we said, that the body keeps the score is great because the body remembers everything. So when you have, it's still a threat, like to your body will be like, oh, and it will react. So being able, the more that you're aware of that, the healthier you'll be able to like handle it. But first is noticing, aha, I see, I am starting to respond to that because he's being so disrespectful. But it is, I'm glad that you brought that up because kids know, teenagers know, they know how to push those buttons, and get you. And so part of it is, I remember someone saying, oh, when you're working with teenagers specifically, don't take it personally. I'm like, how can you not take it personally?
Exactly.
But at the same time, being able to recognize your own, what you carry and do the work is going to be really helpful. I know we're at 2:44 and they're going to kick us out.
Yeah, I think we're at a good spot to end. But no, we really hope, again, we just really are so appreciative of Michelle and the support from the Cambia Health Foundation, Molina Healthcare of Idaho, and United Healthcare. We have tremendous partners that care deeply about this work. And so we hope to see you back. We will be back next month, March, actually, same date, March 21st. At 10 a.m. So March 21st, 10 a.m. Get it on your calendar and join us, please.
It'll be a party. Bring your water and your snacks.
And we'll have more back and forth. We'll have a little more time. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
It'll be different. Totally different.
And yeah, so we'll go ahead and close out of this room, and then we'll go back to the main room and we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much, all.
Okay. Thank you, you guys. Keep them regulated.